All right, we are live. Let's do this. Let's do this in the cloud. Well, if you heard that, the recording's in progress. Hey, I'm Dr. Mike, and I'm just looking at myself in this backdrop here. It's not a bad look. So I just did mondayslive.com. So every Monday since the beginning of the year, we've been doing this live stream and interviewing different motivation guest speakers, you could say, to help kick off your week. And let me give a backdrop so you can see what that looks like. And because that's why I'm wearing my jacket right now. So just to give the feel for it, which you can find on mondays.org or mondayslive.com. So what I thought I would do, because I just got off two calls in a row. So I just talked with Marcus he's in Germany, and Marcus is a business mindset coach. And there's a connection there to thinking about, well, there's some ideas we can work on. Also, it looks kind of faded. This is kind of good to actually look at myself doing a recording because when I'm doing the Zooms, won't be using this background, but this fits into the concept of who I'm representing myself as. So in this case, for the Mondays Live, I'm the producer of the idea that we could kick off our week every Monday morning and get motivated. What a great way to come together. So if you want to keep that in mind, put it on your schedule, tell your friends, come on board to mondayslive.com every week. So I'm also doing this as a social experiment. Now, I have a background promoting motivational seminars. I worked with some really big names back in my day. And so ended up doing a dissertation, which is the doctorate well, also was my master's thesis, actually, the same topic on community conversations, although I expanded it into a whole new realm of as things progressed in my graduate studies. So I call myself a social scientist because I'm really interested in community and how we can connect with each other on such a level that it becomes profound. So the Mondays.org is kind of like that experiment to see what we could do to kick off the week so it would be helpful for myself. But at the same time, show a little bit of love and just being able to sort of really have the capacity to sort of better relate to each other. And what a way for us to come together every Monday morning. And in that way, we're able to kick it off. And maybe you're interested in becoming a guest speaker or joining the community. So that's kind of where that comes from. All right, so let's move on from Mondays and let's pick another one. So my other identity, which I think will come into play pretty soon. I should start with this one. So the IGO, 2 months ago, actually almost 3 months ago now, I finally got the trademark on IGO. So basically what I did is I named the selfie of the mind. It took me about 18 months through a lawyer corresponding back and forth, so we get it right, to convince the United States Trademark and Patent Office that this was a viable concept versus the ego. So what is the difference? Well, the ego is basically at the projection of ourselves in our mind. We all do it. We all have a self-image. So I'm relating to this as an action that also looks to understand how we can improve our self-image by imagining an ideal person, understanding that this is imagining how we're living through it, this lens. So it's a selfie of the mind. We all have it. So the interesting thing to me is that no one's ever really talked about it, at least to the degree to where we can explore it. Now you could look at phenomenology, which is understanding the structures of our experience. So certain levels of social philosophy and ways that we engage, we can understand about self-esteem, self-worth, and how we can position ourselves, at least to the way that we perceive ourselves. We talk about identity. I look at ID. I use a lot of acronyms as internal dialogue, where the I go is having some sense of where I go in my mind and my thinking based on my ideal self or the I. Who am I? The true self. What is this I? And am I grounded in this ability to be able to relate to each other? Am I great in the way that I'm able to sort of just be who I am? And that's going to relate to my output. So the IGO. So it's the individual I and an ideal self, who I dream to be and how I imagine myself to be now lived out in a grounded sense. So it's realistic. And in the way that we can relate and talk to each other, there is some sensibility about this. Now, people who are kind of lost in this world of being able to relate, the output might be negative self-esteem, or they're not really, you could say, their ability to be comfortable with themselves, whether they're feeling genuine, authentic, or if they're feeling that they're inauthentic or a fake self. These are things that, I study and I work at. So that process will eventually evolve to I go therapy. Now it's not like I go to therapy. It's like I go therapy. So it's not really psychotherapy because I'm not really versed in having to deal with people who really uh, are psychotic. I'm talking about people who are able to relate to themselves on another level, to explore a sense of what identity is and what it means to them, and to kind of get out of their stuck stories. I also write about cringe factors. So the cringe to me is where we get stuck in associating our class, our race, our levels of income, or how we perceive ourselves individually to where we're intense in our intention, and how things come off playing out nationality, gender, and ethnicity, or even economic status. That's another acronym for the cringe. You can find that writing at cringefactors.com. So I'm at this point now where the background, which I should unblur, is actually my office. And it's very cluttered because went through a divorce a year ago and um, still in the process of moving stuff out from a house to now a cluttered apartment and all that. And it wasn't done right in the whole process of things. It's not to get my story, but I'm having to reinvent myself in the way like, well, who am I in 2025? I'm recording this, March 10th. So the 10th is always important for me because my birthday is July 10th. So we've landed now. We're in the first quarter of the year, end of the month. We're in second quarter already, and it just felt like it was the new year. So I'm going to close shop here. You do it just for memorabilia purposes. So excuse the clutterness because I'm having to pack up, but that's was sort of that way already. This was the entryway coming in to where, as a podcast studio, you would have a little bit of a waiting room here, do some paperwork. This was my students in hypnotherapy office, the hypno spa, where you could be rest assured, very comfortable in a vibrating chair, giving massage and other types of devices to help put you into that state of mind. All right, so given the different backdrops, we were planning to do a an album review show, and we did kick off the new year, and we started Mondays.org. You can go to newyearsuccess.com and watch an old video of me talk about New Year's going back exactly 30 years ago. It was 1995. This is 2025. And I had a success club back in the day. I really should have kept that going. So I'm looking at relaunching it in the way of a mastermind group. And my current project is launching a CEO directory. And that would be a way to offer particular service and to get, let me put this down here. There you go. Hey, now I'm in the mode. And other past projects to kind of align myself to a certain focus, at least for the rest of this decade, because we're mid-decade right now. So if you don't know who I am, you're just checking this out. I'm kind of doing this as a digital journal. I just did, this is my third Zoom now, so I'm doing my own Zoom, and I've got other calls coming up. Oh no, this is not good. Oh, you know what? I did bring a brush. I think after all this time. I'd like to keep the studio. I mean, it's kind of a fun place to set up. This is supposed to be a round table with the microphones, but again, it's all cluttered up. I gotta pack me up. I gotta get out of here. Now, if the rent would be paid for by other podcasters coming and use the studio in Waukesha, that's a possibility. But I'm going to be moving to Milwaukee. I still got to stay close, relatively speaking, to my kids. And then Chicago, back to Chicago after 30 years. I moved in 1995. So I started off the new year doing the Success Club. And then I got such a good offer, continue working with the biggest name in the motivational seminar industry, because I was his media manager. I moved to LA. All that happened in that particular year. And I'm at that point right now, given mid-decade 2025, that a lot is happening right now. So I'll be moving again and getting myself into a new play of who is this identity now, this internal dialogue. So I see myself as a social philosopher, as I mentioned, having come up with the IGO and other concepts like cringe factors. There's really a lot of terms in the first call, kicking off Mondays. Um, there's an opportunity to coach coaches and take the coaching to another level of consciousness that once they're informed improves their coaching practice, whether you're a consultant, counselor, therapist. Because the way in our meta languaging, the way that we're communicating, there's a lot to be desired if we're trying to improve our ability to communicate, but get the results that we want from our clients. Again, whether it's coaching or therapy, So how we can do this, to me, is representative through the IGO to help people see how it is that they're projecting themselves, and maybe for the first time, they actually see themselves. And that can be pretty profound, if not have some sort of an epiphany or breakthrough. But it has to be done elegantly so there's not a breakdown. So how to do this, and looking at some collaboration with other conscious coaches and to create a community, perhaps a mastermind group, and create courses is sort of one of the accomplishments I would like to see by the end of the year, that this is done. And for me, getting a book deal, either about iGo or lovingconversations.com, I have about a dozen other titles, but those are the two for traditional publishing I would like to have an agent for. I think that's something that is a huge opportunity for the right book agent, because these are breakthrough books. As big as Seven Habits, I knew Stephen Covey is as big as, some other authors who I know as well that were bestsellers. It's amazing. I don't have an agent. So, but that's going to change this year. So, all right. Um, so from the philosophy side, it'd be publishing and having this coaching practice, group coaching actually, and I'd be satisfied in that realm. And going to conferences, sometimes I'm speaking, other times, I'm just meeting people. And on the business level, the mainstream community, um, I'm serving through communityconversations.com, which was my project. So we're doing community conversations at these conferences and around the world, and with different community leaders and experts in their field. And that is itself a podcast. So the big picture down the road is the launch of the podcast channel, podcastchannel.com. But I'm seeing that it's such a big picture, and me being myself and me, myself, and I can do a couple podcasts. I can invite you to do a podcast. We can help you produce your podcast, or bring your existing podcast over, and we'll build out the channel with a number of different shows, because we cross promote each other. Isn't that beautiful that we can do that? And so the CEO directory is kind of like the bread and butter. So if you're a CEO, you're listed in the directory, and we'll have a podcast host directory. So directories is a business side of things. And that's where it's all coming from and where the flow is all going. And in that setting, I find community and relationships, and I'm able to make hopefully a pretty substantial contribution through my publishing, um, really creating and offering a living philosophy. So the idea of ultra being, and to explore it through podcasts, books, talks, and workshops. This is where I would see myself going. This to me would be a really great accomplishment. I'm looking at the dynamic of who we are truly, and how do we represent ourselves. And so you got it pretty much in all encapsulated. So if that's of interest to you, you could check out more about me at drmike.org, Mike, M-I-K-E.org, drmike.org. If you want to get sort of sampling of my philosophy writings, you can go to grandtourideas.com, grandtourideas.com. No matter what, I put this somewhere on YouTube, I'll put some of the links in the description or on the page. You can also go to aboutme's.com. So it's about me, plural. So about me with an S at the end. And here are the latest recording from Gemini LMS, which it's really quite amazing how AI can really conceptualize your ideas and just kind of bring it all together and talk about you. All right, I hope you found something of interest here. You can contact me through my websites as well. My email, Mike, M-I-K-E, at igoism.com. So igoism.com, Mike at igoism.com. Is there something here for you of interest? If you're working in publishing, talk to me. All right, hope you enjoyed this. And let's relate back to the IGO. So igoresearch.com, you can read more about the book. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Be in contact. Love you. All right, YouTubers, you're next. I'm going to end the recording here.